All right, good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to get started today with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's high-stakes visit to Washington.
Today, he is set to meet with President Biden at the White House and to plead with lawmakers to reach a deal to secure more funding to help Ukraine fend off Russia's invasion. But the visit will take place against the backdrop of a Congress divided over additional support. President Biden has proposed just over $60 billion in new wartime funding for Ukraine as part of a national security package. But lead GOP negotiators doubt a deal will be reached before the holidays. Some Republicans are insisting that funding be tied to tougher restrictions at the southern border, where illegal crossings hit record highs.
When it comes to keeping America safe, border security is not a sideshow. It's ground zero.
If Republicans keep insisting on Donald Trump's border policies, then they will be at fault when a deal for aid to Ukraine, Israel, and humanitarian aid to Gaza fall apart.
For more, we're joined by NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, good morning. So despite this visit, there does not seem to be an imminent deal to give Ukraine the funds that it wants. Where do things stand this morning?
Exactly, Joe and Savannah. There's still so much that needs to come together here and coalesce, but nonetheless, Ukrainian President Zelenskyy feels, of course, he's the best messenger to come to Capitol Hill to meet with lawmakers and make that pitch directly. And then he also will be standing beside President Biden at the White House, and they will hold a news conference later today to reiterate why they feel the time for that additional aid is so necessary. This is a point where Ukrainian officials believe the war really could be moved out of the stalemate. And if Ukraine wants to keep defending itself against Russia's invasion, it needs this additional weaponry, munitions, and military aid from the United States. And quite frankly, the U.S. has said if that runs out before the end of the year, which is where things stand right now, it is really a risk right now that Ukraine could lose this war to Russia. So that will be the impassioned plea that you hear from President Zelenskyy personally today.
So this plea that he's making for more funding, though, I mean, it really doesn't have anything to do with the sticking point over border security here at home in terms of how it impacts the president of Ukraine. Does the White House, though, believe that public and private meetings with Zelenskyy could change the mind of some Republican holdouts despite the issue at the border?
That is their hope, Savannah, but it really may be misplaced optimism because Republicans have said in the last couple of days since learning about President Zelensky's visit that they don't think it's going to change anything for them. We're talking about this national security supplemental request for funding that would address border security, but that also would give money to Ukraine, to Israel, and some other top priorities for the Biden administration. But Republicans have really made this about that negotiation, saying we want more for the border. We want some other changes to border policy in order to approve some aid to Ukraine. And they also really quibble with the amount here, $60 billion, which is what the White House wants to see go to Ukraine. What you're going to hear President Zelenskyy speak to today, what he could do with that kind of money. But Republicans and the GOP have really said, we do not really think we can write them a blank check. And there's such limited time to get anything done. Just a couple days before lawmakers are scheduled to leave for the Christmas holiday, the White House has said this needs to get done this week, or they would ask lawmakers to stay to try to hash out a deal. But we all know that sometimes those things get punted so that lawmakers can go home.
All right, Monica Alba ahead of a big day in Washington. Thank you so much.
Well, in the Middle East, Israel's bombing campaign in southern Gaza is threatening the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who were told to flee there.
This morning, the southernmost city of Rafah, which is near the border with Egypt, is coming under an Israeli air assault. The city was one of the places Israel had told Gazans to evacuate to. The fighting comes as UN relief agencies and aid groups issue new warnings about the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in the Palestinian enclave. More than 18,000 people have been killed, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry. Well, the UN says 85% of the population is displaced and half are now starving.
People are just sleeping on the concrete. Winter is here. We have sewage water. They're struggling to find clean water. They're struggling to have food. And that was 2 weeks ago, before the offensive in the south. Since my colleagues report that, again, tens of thousands of people have been moved. They cannot go in the shelter anymore. So basically, they are in the open air. They are outside.
NBC News correspondent Hala Gourani joins us now from Tel Aviv. Hala, thanks for joining us. So, these devastating reports coming from the UN and aid groups working inside Gaza just keep coming as Israel expands its assault on the south, hearing many accounts like the one we just heard there. We're now getting reports of airstrikes on Rafah, as Joe had mentioned. It's supposed to be a safer area. Tell us the latest on that.
Yeah, well, we have a crew inside of the Gaza Strip that was able to film at an internally displaced persons camp in Rafah. I'll get to that in a moment. But you mentioned the humanitarian situation. Aid agencies are telling us that in some cases, in some of these camps, there are 600 people to one toilet. Okay, so it gives you an idea of the hygiene conditions. People are getting diarrhea. They're getting intestinal infections. They're getting chest infections that are turning into pneumonia. They cannot get basic care. Creams, paracetamol, ibuprofen, all of these very basic supplies that you would normally be able to get at a corner pharmacy, they're not able to acquire because they are all pushed into smaller and smaller enclaves with little to no infrastructure and very little in the way of medical help and assistance. I mentioned this crew that we have inside of the Gaza Strip, just as the Israeli authorities and Egyptian authorities, it has to be said, continue to block access to Gaza to independent journalists. And they were able to collect some testimonials, including this one from a teenage girl who is talking about her situation in an internally displaced camp and how she is living and has been trying to survive through these last few weeks. Take a listen.
We are tired of the living we are living. We were displaced from Gaza and from Gaza to Hamad and Khan. From Khan Yunis to here. We are tired. We are tired. No one feels us. We need a piece of bread. We can't find food. I can't find water to drink. We are humiliated. This is not our country.
Right, and meantime, on the military front, the main focus is on Khan Yunis as well as Rafah, as you mentioned, and the Israel Defense Forces are announcing the death since the beginning of the ground incursion of 104 of their troops in Gaza. Back to you.
So, Hala, the UN General Assembly is set to vote today on a non-binding resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. Is the U.S. going to vote against this measure again? How is it expected to go?
So, as you know, the U.S. did use its veto power inside the UN Security Council a few days ago when it vetoed the resolution that was tabled by the United Arab Emirates calling for that immediate humanitarian ceasefire. In this case, we are expecting the U.S. certainly not to vote in favor. We're going to have to follow to see. This is non-binding. It is the UN General Assembly rather than the Security Council. So it would just be more of a symbolic move from the world body. And we're going to have to follow. It's expected to pass, but as it's non-binding, the votes are not as essential in favor, certainly not as essential as they are inside the Security Council itself.
Hala, I want to ask you one more question about the situation in Gaza. The World Health Organization has provided more details. This was about a mission. It led to a hospital in Gaza on Saturday. The Director General expressed serious concerns about what medical staff had to go through to get there. As you mentioned, as people are getting sicker and sicker, it's obviously a concern. Tell us what we know.
Right. I'm going to look down on my notes here because they provided quite a detailed assessment of their mission there inside of Gaza. They went to the El Ahli hospital. You remember that's the Baptist hospital where there was that rocket attack that killed people inside of the courtyard there. And they said that this was a high-risk mission to El Ahli in Gaza City to deliver medical supplies, assess the situation, and transfer some of the most critically injured patients to hospitals in the south, and that they were able, thankfully, to deliver supplies for 1,500 patients, 19 critical patients, and 14 companions to the Nasser Medical Complex in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, where they can receive a higher level of care. But the World Health Organization is saying, look, our staff was targeted. Some of our vehicles took some bullets, were targeted by bullets, or at least ended up in the crossfire of some shooting there in the Gaza Strip, as well as an ambulance. And they're saying more needs to be done to protect medical personnel.
Hala, thank you very much for your reporting on this for us.
As the war drags on, there is growing uncertainty about if both sides can ever ultimately find a peaceful solution to the conflict. Former NBC News correspondent and bureau chief in Tel Aviv, Martin Fletcher, joins us now. Martin, good to have you with us. We're speaking with you because you wrote an article on the war for the Times of Israel. It's titled "The Opportunity Within the Catastrophe." Tell us more what you mean about that.
Well, you know, things look terrible right now, and they are terrible right now in Gaza, Joe. But I'm trying to look forward by a few years, 2, 3, 4 years. At a certain point, the fighting has to stop. And by the way, I don't want to sound naive about this, because obviously there's a lot of problems still to be solved in Gaza. And don't forget, there's a northern border that Israel has with Lebanon. They're still fighting daily on the border with Hezbollah. So that needs to be solved too. But ultimately, when the shooting stops, at some point, Israel and the Palestinians have to look at each other and say, well, that was about as bad as it can be. We can't let it get worse. We have to do something to stop this. And I think with the help of the United States, with the help of the international community, Israelis and Palestinians will be advised, maybe even forced, to sit down together and work out a future together. They need to do that. I mean, there's been this is the 6th war, I believe, in the last 15 years between Israel and Hamas. If there's a major war on the north between Israel and Lebanon, it'll make the war going on now with Gaza, it'll look like child's play compared to what will happen in the north if Israel and Lebanon and Hezbollah go to war. Hezbollah has about 150,000 rockets pointed at Israel, many of them highly accurate rockets. So at some point, they need to sit down and talk the future. I don't want to use the word peace, but they need to work out a way to live together in the future. And I do believe that from every catastrophe proceeds opportunity. We know that. It may sound naive right now. It's not encouraging right now. But at a certain point, the two conditions need to be met. Israel must understand that force is not the answer to everything. You can't fight your way past every problem. You can't kill your way out of every problem. And the Palestinians also have to realize something very important. The time is not on their side. Palestinians believe that as time goes by, something will happen and Israel will disappear. Israel will not disappear. So when those two conditions are met, and I do believe that coming out of this horrific round of fighting now, both sides will realize the time has come.
Martin, you referenced a little bit what you think the U.S. needs to do here, but I want to ask you now, I mean, we're one of Israel's biggest supporters. What role should the U.S. play to help try to ensure some type of end to this conflict and hopefully something longer term that breaks this cycle of conflict?
Well, Savannah, it's not going to be pretty. The United States is going to have to wield a big stick against Israel. I know at the moment, of course, President Biden and America is Israel's greatest ally by far. But friends at some point need to speak truth to friends. And the truth is that Israel needs to negotiate peace with the Palestinians, and the Palestinians need to negotiate peace with Israel. They're not doing it voluntarily. So America has a very important role to play in forcing both sides to the negotiating table. And, you know, as I say, it may not be pretty. At the moment, America's support is critical for Israel. But at a certain point, that support needs to turn to tough love.
All right, Martin Fletcher, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As always, we appreciate your time.
We sure do. Thank you. Well, the Texas State Supreme Court has ruled against a pregnant woman seeking to get an emergency abortion due to serious health concerns.
Kate Cox is around 20 weeks pregnant. Last month, she learned her fetus has a fatal diagnosis. Hours before the ruling came down on Monday, Cox's attorneys announced she left the state to get the procedure because of deteriorating health.
For more on this, let's bring in Michelle Goodwin. She's a professor of constitutional law and global health policy at Georgetown Law School. Michelle, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning. So Texas has these two primary laws regarding abortion. One gives people the right to file civil suits against anyone who provides an abortion. And then the second also makes it a felony to perform an abortion from the moment of fertilization. So at issue here was whether Kate Cox should get an exception here because of her medical prognosis. The state attorney general, Ken Paxton, said Cox did not sufficiently demonstrate that her situation qualified for an exemption to that law because her pregnancy did not threaten her life. Obviously, two different things are being argued here. So what do you make of that? What do you make of this ruling?
So the Texas Supreme Court has issued an order that the district court judge rescind their order, which would allow an exception in this case because the district court determined, based on the evidence that was there, that this was a threat to her life because she's with a pregnancy where it's a non-viable pregnancy, and this non-viable pregnancy could interfere with any future pregnancies. And at a baseline, according to the United States Supreme Court, a pregnancy is 14 times more likely to end in a pregnant person's death than having an abortion. That's the Supreme Court in a whole woman's health case that came out of Texas in 2016. And so you're right in highlighting that we see two extreme distinctions here. On one hand, if a doctor moves forward with performing an abortion in a case such as this, that person could risk a $100,000 fine, 99 years incarceration, and the revocation of their medical license. And so there's much at stake here, and Kate Cox has now left the state, or is leaving the state, to have the pregnancy terminated.
So we know that the Texas Supreme Court leans conservative. Walk us through their decision here that they came to sort of overrule the previous judge that cleared the way for Cox to get the emergency abortion.
So what the Supreme Court stated in this case is that this is actually not a matter for the courts. The first thing that they said is that this is a law, and this is a law that has been determined by the Texas legislature, and the court doesn't find a reason to interfere with that law. The second thing that they said is that in this particular case, it is not necessary that a person who qualifies for an exception actually seek some form of a judicial bypass or seek some form of a temporary restraining order. The court made a point here saying that although the doctor in one instance has said that this is a life-threatening condition, that in the filings that the doctor did not say that again. Now, that too is a bit of a catch-22. It puts the doctors in a very vulnerable position in these cases, which of course is part of what it seems the legislature was intending to do even before the SB 8 law, which is something that many have not paid much attention to. Texas, since about 2010, has curated a number of laws that are focused on the doctors rather than the patients who perform abortions.
So Cox is a Texas resident. Could she face any legal repercussions for, as we now have heard from her attorney, she is going out of state to get this procedure, this medical attention?
Well, it is not a violation of law to travel out of state in order to get, let's say, alcohol in another state, or to get something else that is not available in your state. One of the key reasons why we have the current Constitution that we do was because of questions with regard to the ability to be able to travel seamlessly through the United States. That is a constitutional right that all individuals have. So she has that constitutional right to leave the state, to have an abortion in a state where that is illegal, or to do what is legal in another state. Now, that said, there are conservative lawmakers in states like Alabama and in Texas and Louisiana who have said that they want to think about whether they would attempt to prosecute individuals that go out of state to terminate a pregnancy, or seek to, in fact, have some form of criminal prosecution of those who are out of state who perform abortions, such as to extradite them to their states.
Georgetown Law School's Michelle Goodwin, thank you very much for walking us through this morning.
Thank you.
Now to Washington, where the House Rules Committee is expected to vote on a resolution today. It could give the green light to an impeachment inquiry into President Biden.
If the expected party line vote passes, House Republicans hope to put the proposed inquiry to a full floor vote as early as tomorrow. That is according to two sources familiar with the matter. However, GOP members have still not come up with direct evidence of any wrongdoing by the president.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale joins us now with more on this. Ali, good morning. So House Speaker Mike Johnson says he understands many GOP members don't believe President Biden committed any impeachable offenses here. So why is the Speaker moving forward with this?
Because they're still going to try to find something. I mean, that is truly the underpinning here is investigations have been going on, Joe, for the entirety of this Congress. The entire year, 3 key committees on the Hill have been sending subpoenas, seeking information, trying to focus their investigation on the president's son, Hunter Biden, as well as his brother. But now they're in the process of trying to link the president to his family members. They have yet to do that, but they want to be able to launch an impeachment inquiry so that they can ratchet up their investigation efforts in hopes of finding something. I think it's really important for us to still underscore that none of their investigations at this point have yielded anything that marks substantive, impeachable offenses of the president, who was at that point the vice president and then a private citizen during his time out of office. Nevertheless, Republicans are going to persist with this.
So, Allie, this potential vote this week, it's coming as the Republican majority in the House is now smaller after George Santos was expelled. So there is little room here for error. What can we expect? What do you think is going to play out in the next 24 to 48 hours?
Look, it's going to be tight, but as you point out, Savannah, with the loss of one more Republican member, everything was going to be tight. But frankly, even before Santos, Republicans and Democrats alike were dealing with razor-thin margins in this Congress. The impeachment inquiry, at a certain point a few months ago, we thought Republicans did not have the votes. What Republicans are saying to us now is that they do have the votes to launch an impeachment inquiry because they think that Republican members went back home to their district over Thanksgiving and they found that there might have been an appetite not to impeach the president necessarily, but certainly to inquire as to whether or not they should impeach the president. But here's where all of this gets sticky, right? Because it looks like at this point they actually have the votes to move forward with this later this week on Wednesday is what our understanding is. But the problem becomes then you get into 2024, you are in an election year, and some members who are leading the charge on this impeachment inquiry or investigation already have said they feel they have enough to impeach the president. Rank and file members that we talk to say they don't see that evidence right now. So you do end up in a quagmire situation for Republicans where politically they either have to go ahead and impeach President Biden on what right now looks like flimsy evidence that does not necessarily exist in the way Republicans need it to, or they need to acquit him, and that becomes problematic in an election year politically.
So, Allie, real quick, we mentioned Santos. We want to talk about something else with Santos, reporting that federal prosecutors have entered plea negotiations in their criminal case against him. What's the latest there?
Well, look, this is what you would expect, especially after the fact that he's out of Congress and certainly still has to deal with all of these criminal charges against him. The fact that we know that he's entered into plea negotiations with prosecutors, again, that makes sense. We'll look to see what that actually looks like. Until then, George Santos is spending his time on Cameo and apparently making a lot of money on it. There's that.
Sounds like he's doing quite well there. All right, Allie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Allie. Well, in a development in the federal case against Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, Special Counsel Jack Smith made the surprise move of asking the Supreme Court to decide whether Trump has immunity from the upcoming trial, bypassing the normal appeals process.
The court has now said it will consider whether to hear the case in an expedited matter and asked Trump's lawyers to respond by December 20th. Now, Smith said it was, quote, of imperative public importance that the court step in to rule whether a former president is clear from prosecution for crimes he may have committed while in office, as Trump has claimed.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos is, of course, here with us. Danny, good morning. So explain why it is that Jack Smith is seeking help from the Supreme Court now and why it's important.
A brilliant strategic move, because in the ordinary criminal case, this would go to the Court of Appeals and it would wend its way through and take months, if not years. Basically, Jack Smith is saying, hey, this is, excuse me, such an important issue. Decide it now. Take it away from the Court of Appeals. Let's get this over with, because we all know where this is going. It's going to the Supreme Court, just like it did in the Nixon era. And the court then did grant that speedy resolution and decided the issue within a month of filing the petition. So Jack Smith makes a compelling argument. Hey, you did it before in a very similar situation. And we're going to resolve this vexing issue that could cause a huge scheduling problem. We'll get it over with now, and then it's smooth sailing to the March trial date. You know, because when you think about it, if that March trial date gets moved at all, now we get into major controversy. Anything before the election, the defense will howl. They'll say you're interfering with an election. Anything after an election, or specifically after inauguration, if that case is still pending, it's over. Trump appoints an attorney general who will dismiss it bye-bye federal cases.
That's assuming he wins, of course, the election. So we know the Supreme Court isn't required to take the case. So what can we expect next? If they do take it, what kind of timeline? I feel like this would move faster than your normal Supreme Court case.
Yes, exactly. And Jack Smith cites precedent that in the Nixon era, they did the exact same thing. They took the case and decided it, I believe, within a month of the petition being filed. Now, that sounds really fast, but we're talking about a March trial date. So even a month would be a quarter of the time, if I'm doing my math right, until the trial. So, I mean, really anything makes a big difference at this stage, because we're literally just a few months away from one of the trial dates.
Has Trump's camp said anything about this?
Have they said, well, I mean, they've said that they are they're going to fight this. They're going to want to delay it as much as they can, because for them, a huge victory in all the federal cases is if they can delay it at least into the middle of the election, in which case they can cry political prosecution. And as I've said before, if they get it past the inauguration date, these federal cases are over. Not the state cases, but the federal cases go bye-bye.
Danny Ceballos, we appreciate you always. Thank you so much.
Jack Frost is making a few stops through parts of Georgia and Florida.
That's right. And meteorologist Angie Lassman is keeping an eye on him for us.
We're not going to talk about the horror movie again.
I know. I was like, isn't that the scary guy again? Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. That's the technical term, Jack Frost, I guess. Yeah, we do have some of these freeze alerts that are up for just a small section of the southeast, but still, they matter. So parts of Georgia and Florida, especially along the coast, you can see some of those frost advisories in the light pink. It is a little chilly there this morning. We've got temperatures ranging from the upper 20s in places like Macon to the high 30s in Valdosta. Those kind of upper 30s stretch out towards Panama City, and then Pensacola is sitting into the low 40s. So just heads up, you might head out to your car and deal with a little frost this morning. Otherwise, we look to parts of the Midwest, the plains, and we're running above normal for this time of year with these temperatures. Low 60s in Little Rock this afternoon, 50 degrees for St. Louis and in Cincinnati as well. And these temperatures continue to be kind of mild here up through the Midwest as we get into the later parts of the work week. Tomorrow, 46 degrees in Omaha. Minneapolis will sit at 37, and the Northeast starts to see that kind of warming trend too. We go from the upper 30s in New York on Thursday to the low 50s by Friday and Saturday. It's going to feel really nice. Mid 50s for Richmond Friday and Saturday. So those milder conditions will settle in for December here. We just have to get through the work week. Meanwhile, it's pretty quiet across the country. You can see satellite and radar not showing much, maybe a little snow falling in those higher elevations of the Rockies. But we do have another storm system that we are going to track as we get through tomorrow and really Thursday. It's mainly going to hang out over parts of the southern plains. Texas especially could see the potential for some really heavy rain. As we get through the next couple of days, we'll also see some snow kind of start up as we get into tomorrow. So from Texas to Colorado is where we'll see most of that precipitation from this system. It eventually will start to pick up the pace and move a little farther to the east and impact folks down the line. But between Wednesday and Thursday, we could see a good amount of rain, especially for central Texas, about an inch where you see the brighter yellow, the oranges, 2 inches. We could see isolated amounts up to 3 inches. So the potential for flooding will be there for folks in this region. As far as the snowfall forecast, it looks like those higher elevations could see up to 2 feet possible, but the lower elevations anywhere from 4 to 6 inches, and the brighter pink is about 8 inches. So we'll watch for that in parts of Colorado and New Mexico over the next couple of days. We've got to watch, though, the next few days, and especially into the work week, another system that will start to develop across parts of the Gulf of Mexico, and eventually the state of Florida will have to see, will be on tap to see, I should say, some heavy rain as we head into the weekend. This could leave us with some flooding potential for Florida, and we don't want to see that during the weekend, do we, Savannah?
We do not. A southeast soaker, I see you're calling it. All right, Angie, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.